Crazy California has decided to stop Paramount Skydance from picking up Warner Brothers. Oh wait, they have no chance of doing so. Yet they're throwing every possible hurdle. And now, well, Europe has decided to prove California has moved so far to the left, even the EU is more middle, more centrist. How? Why? Well, it turns out the EU just gave the approval for Warner Brothers to be bought by Paramount. Hello folks, hello friends, welcome back yet again where we explain entertainment. Keeping you ahead of the culture curve is what we do. We do it with a zeal that even the Hollyweirds can feel, and we're so happy that you're here. As we dive in, click that like button, share, subscribe, and click it. Stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. It's hard to believe, but Commie California has moved farther to the left than Europe. The EU is now approving the sale of Warner Brothers Discovery, which includes, by the way, CNN, to Paramount, even as California tries to stop the deal. Ted Johnson writing this one in Deadline, Paramount seeks 3-day evidentiary hearing as judge considers preliminary injunction to halt Warner Brothers Discovery merger. Now, that's a lot of words, and that's really deep vocabulary, a vernacular you might not hear every day, but I'll tell you what it means. It means that there's a judge out there who said, no, you're not going to buy the thing, and we're going to delay this, and if they delay it too long, what's going to happen is Paramount's going to be the hook for a lot of money. It says Paramount is proposing that a federal judge hold a 3-day evidentiary hearing later in August. It says U.S. District Judge Araceli Martinez-Olguin issued a temporary restraining order on Monday, halting the transaction for 2 weeks, while she set a hearing for August 3rd on a lengthier preliminary injunction. The order was issued in response to an antitrust lawsuit brought by California and 11 other states last week. Now remember that Paramount was cleared by the U.S. government, which, as I recall, is bigger than California and takes precedent over California. But California doesn't care. This judge doesn't care. The goal here is just to gum up the thing and stick their finger in the eye of Paramount and the Ellisons because they feel they're too far in the middle. Not on the right, but in the middle. Paramount's lawyers wrote that the state AGs, that's attorneys general, are seeking an extraordinary and drastic remedy, a preliminary injunction that would pause the merger for at least 8 months without giving the company an opportunity for a full and fair hearing. That's exactly right. And the whole deal here, again, is to muck up the system and force Paramount to spend incredible amounts of money so that maybe they'll just give up, even though the feds have already cleared this thing. Well, you know, that was one story, and then it got a little bit stickier. Why? Because Reuters is reporting that just hours ago, it turns out Europe, which is not known for being sensible, not known for being the middle, not known for being centrist, that Europe, the EU, Germany, France, and the rest, that they have thrown a wrench in California's plans because, according to Reuters, Paramount secures the EU nod for a $110 billion Warner Brothers deal. The U.S. hurdles are still ahead, it says, but the EU has now approved it. It says Paramount Skydance on Wednesday gained European Union antitrust approval for its $110 billion acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery after agreeing to ditch a film distribution joint venture with Universal Pictures, which fixed the whole thing. All right, so this, I think, has screwed California even more, but California is screwing itself. Lou, I'll go to you because you are an expert in the industry. Lou, what do you make of this? And my belief is this is going through now. There's no way to stop it. All California is doing is causing the Ellisons and other Hollywood companies to say, get out of Dodge, leave this place. It's Detroit 2.0.
It's virtue signaling of the nth degree. It's, see, we're going to stand up to those evil capitalist SOBs, you know, the ones that employ you all and that are talking about taking the jobs and going somewhere else. As if there weren't enough people making good incomes walking away from California, running away from California already. And all the other states involved in this are of the same ilk, Oregon and Washington, and I forget who else. You got to remember this thing at the end. If this thing goes past a certain date, Paramount has to pay a big amount of money, and they will. They'll just do it. That's Paramount, by the way. Right.
Would you say that California now is just trying to push them past that point because they just want to hurt them?
I just think they're just showing off for their friends. They're just saying, see, honest, we're the good guys. We're the true believers. And remember that California is, by and large, a Democratic majority state, and that the Democratic Party, I know we don't get political, but it's a reality fact of life, has gone entirely over to these radical DSA people. And candidates for future election have to prove that they're the good guys, that they're on the side of truth and virtue and socialism, or else they're going to get overthrown. And it's, it's not Schumer and Pelosi's party anymore. It's Mamdami's and AOC's.
Well, let's talk about that, because that's a good point. We don't like to talk about politics, but when it intersects with entertainment, we're forced to do so. Kevin, I think Lou makes a great point. California now and New York seem to be more and more under the control of, as he said, the DSA. We're talking about the Democratic Socialists of America. And that name sounds like, maybe it's benign, but behind it, I think, is flat out communism. And at this rate, Kevin, we're seeing it. Yeah, we're seeing an exodus out of New York. There was just a report about how many millionaires have left. We're seeing it out of California. There's no reason now for Paramount, Skydance, Warner Brothers, Discovery, CNN, this giant company that rivals Disney when all is said and done. There is no reason for them to stay in California. In fact, there is every reason to leave California, Kevin.
Absolutely. Listen, don't be shocked if we find out that they're going to Tennessee or Georgia, because why would you stay in California? Why would you stay in New York? Why would you stay in New Jersey? Why would you go anywhere near Washington or Oregon at this point? The psychopaths don't just run the asylum. They've fortified it and made sure that every ounce of goo and muck and filth that fills it is spilling out into your water, and you can't get away from it. Listen, at the end of the day, we know what this really is. But like Lou said, this is the true believers throwing a virtue signal temper tantrum to gum up the works simply because the Ellisons were favorable to the Orange Man and want things to run down the middle, and it ruins the monopoly on leftist agenda and gobbledygook. And listen, we can laugh and say that it isn't Schumer's or Pelosi's party anymore, but at the end of the day, I don't mourn the arson who gets burned in their own fire. These are the people who went into our schools and turned our universities into communist training camps. They are upset now because the glamour has been shattered. The veneer is off. They can't hide in plain sight because the spoiled, petulant children are telling everybody what we already know. This is really what they want to do. This is about seizing power, and they can't hold on to power if they can't lie to you directly into your face. And now they made a great big old mess, and hopefully this will blow up in their face too. But it's kind of embarrassing, and it's obvious what's actually happening here.
Right. You've got the United States approving it. You've got Europe, of all places, approving it. But California says, no, you're not going to do it. Wiz, what does it say about the state of the two places that used to make all of our entertainment, California, New York, that they are now actually farther left than the EU?
It's possible. Like that's the reality we're living in, where these are these states have the policies are so wild that business can't operate. We're not even talking about just Hollywood anymore. Like it's just business can't operate there. The cost of doing commerce in these states is so absurd. It is so obscene. And here's another thing. And I really like, Kevin pointed out, don't be surprised if they go to Tennessee. Don't be surprised if they go to Georgia. The problem is these states have worked in tax clauses that even if you move, even if you relocate, there are still ways that like a parasite leaching into your organization, you still owe taxes to that previous state you were in for X amount of years, depending on the circumstances that may be. If you have even one employee that still has residency in one of those states, you may have to pay out quite a bit large sum of money to conduct business in that state. They are finding ways, and this is crossing over. This is not just taxes on businesses. They're also figuring out ways. We're seeing this in New York right now. They are figuring out ways to trap you there that you think you may be able to escape. Well, all right, well, you're going to lose a lot more running away than you would if you just stayed where you are. There, you cannot leave because they know people want to leave. But if you all leave, then they lose all the power. So you can't go. They must find ways to trap people there. And it's getting scary. it's getting scary because it's getting real. This isn't speculation anymore.
A big part of it is when you leave, you bring the tax base away from there with you, and therefore they don't have the money to do what they want to do. Victor Davis Hanson, who is my favorite, perhaps, of all political social commentators, made the point in a speech just yesterday, I guess it was. He said the average DSA person in New York or wherever is a 30-something with a college degree, and they're making 50, 60 grand a year, and they can't afford to live in New York or wherever because they got a degree in some totally BS subject that doesn't give them a job. And so these are people of envy who feel like the world has cheated them out of what they're entitled to. Hell hath no fury like a person who's got a grudge, you know. As far as businesses, look, we've just saw, which was it? True Value Hardware moved out of California. We've seen insurance companies say, well, then we're just not going to sell policies in that state anymore. We've seen oil companies leave. So what happens if all of this goes and they pay the price and they leave and they pay the fines or the taxes or whatever, and they say, well, if you show movies in our state, you're still going to pay us. And they say, okay, well, listen, AMC, you know, all those theaters you've got in California, sorry, you're not going to get our product anymore.
Yeah. The craziest thing we've seen so far out of this, just so people understand the consequences, is, you know, Washington State, which joined in on this with California. Washington State has essentially two companies that when you think of Washington State, you think of these two companies, like they're the big ones. One of them is Starbucks. Starbucks, that you would think would never, ever, ever leave Seattle. I mean, that's Starbucks in Seattle is like peas and carrots, to cite a certain someone who sat on a bench one time. Well, guess what? Starbucks got up and left and went to Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Why would Paramount not do the same thing? And so I want to go back to Wiz real quick. Wiz, you were talking about this idea that like barnacles, they stick to you now. They're trying to create these systems where you can't leave. Wiz, walk us through. Do you know about the deal in New York where they were trying that? What was that, and how did that play out?
They're still it's actively happening now. It's like still being discussed. This estate situation where your house will, if you're living there, depending on if you like your terms of residency, when you leave, you still have to pay taxes as if you were living there up to X amount of years. Now, the reason I know that this is real is because I have felt this personally with my own company. So it's only a matter of time that they would, you know, something that is already set for businesses, they would then play out for just regular taxpayers too. And that's something out of New York. I mean, it is insane. And it's not even New York City. This is at the state level. So we're seeing this at state levels, not just Hollywood or Los Angeles. This would
California
be the governor
has been doing this, by the way, a long time before people realized it. I once, actually more than once, bought an automobile in Kansas City from eBay. I found a guy selling a car I wanted. And so I flew out there. I got the car. I registered it. I drove it back. And when I came across the border into California to go to the DMV to register it in California, they charged me tax on the transaction of buying it. In other words, the state of California was taxing a transaction that took place, 2,000 miles away. How do they get away with that? If you or I tried to do that, they'd call it extortion. But they got away with it. So they, what's mine is mine, and what's theirs is yours is mine, and everything is theirs. You know, this whole thing about you won't own anything and you'll like it. Well, like it or not, that's their goal, to have you not own anything. They do, or they control it so much that the value of ownership is diluted to nothing.
And the people out there in the chat who are going, well, why didn't this happen with Disney? Well, it's because it's simple. It's rules for thee and not for me.
Hold on a second, Kevin. Hold on. I don't mean to interrupt you. California just gave Disney tens of millions of dollars out of their slush fund that was supposed to save entertainment. And they said, oh, well, you know what? Actually, Disney, you carry our political water all the time. So here's $14 million. Here's $20 million for your animated movie Hexed that you're going to make no matter what. But here's free money. They love Disney, Kevin. They love Disney because Disney does what they want them to do, which is spread their politics.
Yep, that's it. You spread the message, you get rewarded. If you don't play along, you get crushed. It's it's rules for radicals 101. And unfortunately, that's kind of where we have been for the better part of 20 years. It just now it's so brazen, and just it has infected every aspect of our culture that you have to have these discussions. This was a long time brewing, and yes, New York State. New York, the governor that no one voted for, she is hell bent on racing Mondavi to the commie to the commie deep end of the pool, and is actually openly defiant if you dare want to leave the state. So it's only going to be a matter of time before it gets worse. I just don't know if people can hold out until this has to get battled out in the Supreme Court. And, there's never any real guarantee that it's going to go the way it should, because none of this should be even remotely constitutional.
I'll tell you, the losers in all of this, Californians, because we are not long from the point where California and New York, but California especially, are no longer where entertainment comes from. We are not far from that leaving the state and that state being left with nothing.
And remember, if any of you, forget about entertainment, if any of you have ever lived in or known people who lived in what's called a company town, it's not just the company. Everybody who's working at these studios who might move, they've got a dry cleaner. They've got a local corner store they go to. They've got all kinds of businesses that rely on them being there to be customers, who are going to have a big chunk of their customers disappear.
Entire ecosystems being crashed by California, determined to stop what has already been approved by the U.S. and the EU. And that means it's going through. All California is doing now is punishing their own taxpayers while claiming they're virtue signaling to the bank. Well, it's been a good time. It's been a great time, folks. It's been a groovy time, even. Keeping the Hollyweirds in line. We know them better than they know themselves. As we say goodbye, folks, please consider clicking that like button, drop a comment down below, and join the community dialogue today. And until the next time, we say it every time. Keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.